Hey, what's up, everybody? This is UnhingedGaming, and welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series on Eminem, where today I'm going to be talking about his latest single, Untouchable. If you did not catch my previous video, it came out just earlier today, and it was about Walk on Water. You can check out, there's going to be a link to it at the end of the video on my end card. There's also, you can click on the eye in the upper right hand corner if you want to watch it right now. That'll show you my cards. But in the meantime, let's just get right into it. And just a quick recap, I discussed that. And then the last part of the series is going to be a full artist review of Eminem, including a prediction on what his new album is going to be about. So today I'm going to be talking about, like I said, Untouchable, which is a great song that further, I talked about this a little bit in the last video of I feel like he might be switching the focus of his music, and I feel like that's a lot of what Walk on Water was about. So Untouchable really really kind of points to that some more. It's more evidence on that. It supports that theory that it's essentially about white supremacy or white privilege, whatever you want to say. It's very much a Black Lives Matter sort of song. What's interesting about it is that as far as I know, it's one of the first anyway songs that Eminem has released that's like for a cause. Like he's rapped about important things for sure, but it's never been like activist. Whereas this was very activist, or at least it seems activist to me in the way that it's set up. So I'm just going to run through the whole song really quick and give just my impressions of it, my opinions of it, and just give a full review, because that's what this video is. That's why you clicked on it. So it starts off, and it's interesting to me, this choice, but it is very well put together. And so I'm just going to go through the whole song really quick, start to finish. A brief summary. Something I find really interesting about the beginning, the sort of intro. So it starts off from the perspective of a privileged white person. It seems to be a white cop in particular who is talking. It starts out black boys, we ain't gonna lie to you. Black boys, we don't like the sight of you. And something I find really interesting about it is that we have this sort of rhythm, or this tone, the tune that it's going in is very similar to the theme song for Cops, which I find really interesting, that he would choose that tune as like a play on police. And the way that because it's a lot about police brutality and everything, so I think that was a really interesting choice, and I really like the tone of that in the beginning. And the whole thing is kind of, it starts out from the perspective of a white person who is is privileged, kind of a supremacist, is a racist in their views, however you want to put it, and just kind of their interactions and everything like that. And then it shifts to his perspective, where he's saying, I must admit sometimes I'm embarrassed to be white and things like that. And he's talking about, why are they sending white cops to black neighborhoods that they're not acclimated to, yada, yada, yada. And then towards the end of the song, it actually shifts to the perspective of a black person, where he's talking about, this whole thing of just struggling, and McDonald's seems to be the only one who will hire. How can we aim for something better? I'm not quoting the lyrics exactly. And then it's like this whole sort of idea of, changes that need to be made, and these racist views. And it's from the perspective of a black person towards the end, and I haven't listened to this one as much, so I don't have a lot of it memorized, but it's very much these ideas of, you can't understand what we're going through, sort of thing. And I feel like Eminem has kind of the right to do that as well, because he did grow up in the ghetto, and so he's been treated very similarly, just in terms of class, and then he's seen a lot of the racism that goes on in those areas. Um, and there's a lot of talk of, again, just you don't know what we've been through sort of stuff, and like how can you judge this when you're just a privileged white person? And there's like stuff about Republican views and, pull up your bootstraps, how we don't have any boots. A lot of lines that feel very powerful to me and are cleverly put together, which is really I'm impressed with a lot of the rhymes in there. And there's a lot of things. He goes some pretty intense places, like what the flag was built off of, these American ideals that made us kill the natives, which is something that a lot of people won't get into when they're talking about racism. But that is how America started. It started with people who wanted religious freedom and they wanted something for themselves, so they went to a foreign land, they slaughtered the people in there, and they colonized it. That's what America is built off of. I'm part Native American. I have Native American family. I have heard only like second or third hand exactly what happened. It was several generations back, but it's still impacting a lot of my family members even to this day. So, like, it was interesting to me that he went there, because a lot of people won't go there, and I appreciate, again, this kind of further supports my theory of kind of the direction that he's going with his music, because he's taking what he used to he's taking that same level of not being scared of controversy and putting it into a cause, which I think is a really interesting thing that, again, really supports what I've been kind of saying his new album's going to be. Which, again, I'll talk about more in the next video, which should be coming out either later today or on Thursday. So there was all of those elements in there that I really appreciated, and it was very against, like, I don't know. He went so far as to imply he was against the flag, which I feel like is a very powerful statement, and it's a very real issue that I think it's great that he's talking about, because he has a lot of power behind his words, and up to this point he's used it, I'm not gonna say for bad. Like, I have no disrespect. Even his songs that are derogatory or whatever, they're hateful in whatever way. I feel like he's just releasing things with that, if that makes sense. I don't feel like it's necessarily his beliefs. He's just ranting. And a lot of his songs seem to be more of a train of thought than like a story or something that he did or something that he wants to do. It's just like a train of thought. It's like, I'm angry and I'm going to spew all that anger onto the page and it's going to rhyme. But to have that be put into something that's actually good, like that's constructive, I think is a very powerful thing, because there's a lot of power behind his lyrics, a lot of power behind his voice, and to talk about something really real like this, and when he ripped Donald Trump, that was another really powerful thing that was completely freestyling too. But I really like the way that it's put together. I think it's a really great song. I think a lot of the rhymes are super on point. The track itself is really great. It's really well put together. The only criticism I really have with it is there are points where it's really hard to understand the lyrics, and I actually had to look the lyrics up to get a full scope of what he's saying. But it's very well put together all in all, and again, I like the setup of like going from the perspective of a white cop to the perspective of a white person who grew up in the ghetto to a perspective of a black person who's living in the ghetto, and it brings up being a single mom, and this another thing it brings up that I think is really important, because a lot of people talk about, well, there's a lot of crime in black neighborhoods, there's a lot of black people killing each other, yada yada yada, and it brings up this whole like, well, why do you think they're doing that? Like, it's not because they're black, obviously, because there's people. I mean, when white people are living in those conditions, they're just as violent, and when black people are living in other conditions, they're not as violent. No race is inherently more violent than anyone else. obviously. So it's this idea of, well, why do you think we're like that? Look at the conditions that we're put in because of society. That I think is a really big thing, really important, big thing to be talking about. So all in all, I think it was really well put together, and I love the way that it talks about something so important. Um, and it's an issue that I've been exposed to quite a bit in my life. You know, I've met a number of black people who grew up in, you know, a pretty ordinary middle class environment and weren't discriminated against. I have known black people who grew up in that sort of environment and were still discriminated against. I've known people who grew up in the ghetto and were very discriminated against. Like, I get a pretty full scope of, you know, all of the conditions that someone can be put through. And the same goes, I've known white people who have been treated just as shitty because they grew up in, you know, a trailer park in a really ghetto area where they're just total white trash. Um, and that's a big issue too. A lot of it's just the living conditions, and then the fact that there is still racism because our country was built largely on slavery, um, just makes it even worse for those people. Um, but it's really a societal issue that has a lot to do with class, and we just put more, as a society, we tend to put more black people in the position of living like that still to this day. Even though we have equal rights now, it's like still, we're still segregated in a lot of areas, which is crazy to me that we would still be segregated after all this time and all of this effort put into making us equal, making everyone equal. It's like, well, there's still neighborhoods that are black neighborhoods. And that was another thing the song brought up, was like, why are there even black neighborhoods? You know, why why aren't there just neighborhoods? And that's something else I really agree with that I feel like needs to be brought up. So in any case, I've gone on enough about it. All in all, I'd give this song a solid like 8 out of 10. I thought it was great. Again, the only thing is that, like, I felt like there were really good lyrics that you just couldn't hear or understand because the music was drowning them out. But other than that, like, it was a great song, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the rhythm, and I felt like it had a really powerful message that I will talk about more in the next video, where I'll do a full artist review and predict what the album Revival is going to be about. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Again, it'll be coming up either later today or on Thursday, but regardless, I hope to see you there, and I hope to hear your opinions, and I'd also love to hear your opinions on this song and what you think of it and what you think of the message, and, you know, just start some discussions down there in the comments. I'd like to talk to you, and I'd like to see you guys talking to each other. Also, let me know if you want me to do some more music-related stuff, because I'd be happy to if there's something else you want me to cover that's music related. I love everything music. But in the meantime, I've been Unhinged Gaming, and I will see you next time.